Well, thank you very much. And as one of the co-organizers of this conference, I would just like to begin by thanking sincerely the Nordic Council of Ministers for their support, and especially you, Haldor, for developing Cool North Conference, and the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy for co-organizing the event. It seems when I'm listening to Werner that you had a great day yesterday, but I must say that I think, started off really well. Thank you very much to both Annika and Karina for two great interventions. I agree very much with everything that you've said so far. As former foreign minister and current chairman of the Baltic Development Forum, I have been involved firsthand in cooperation in the Baltic Sea region for many years and in many different ways. Nordic cooperation, Nordic-Baltic cooperation, Baltic Sea cooperation, etc. And I'm a great believer in our regional cooperation. Maybe one of the things that many of you don't know is that before Foreign Affairs Council meetings in the European Union, the Nordic states that are member of the European Union and the Baltic states, we actually have a pre-meeting beforehand in order to try and coordinate our views on some of the foreign affairs aspects. And I think at least that's one of the things that had a very, very high value. If one of the Baltic states or one of the Nordic states had a certain issue that was very important to them, we were able not only to speak with the voice of one country, but with the voices of 6 countries together. And then it was very, very powerful. So that's just one small example of the cooperation in our region making us a much stronger voice also on global issues. And therefore, I must say that I'm a great, great believer in our regional cooperation, especially with the way of geopolitics and all the regional instabilities that we're facing. We really need the regional cooperation. Individually, all our countries are small, but together we make up a very powerful region with more than 60 million inhabitants. So together we can make a difference in the world, and we are often also known as the ones that are punching above our weight. The Baltic Sea countries share many things. I know that you discussed that also yesterday. Of course, we share the Baltic Sea that surrounds us. We share a common history, although it was not always a peaceful one. We share common values. We share the values of democracy, transparency, openness towards the world, other people and nations, and strong involvement of civil societies, which I think at least is one of the key answers on what to do, especially with the way that we need to handle Russia and other aggressors. We need to strengthen the civil societies. We also share the same vision to develop the Baltic Sea region into one of the most dynamic, innovative, and competitive regions in the EU and globally. With all these common features in mind, it is no coincidence that the EU chose the Baltic Sea region when the first EU macro-regional strategy was developed in 2009. Our way of cooperating in the Baltic Sea region is an example for others to follow. And the cultural cooperation is a priority area in the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea, because culture is not only what binds us together internally in the region, it is also a very smart way of promoting and branding our region externally towards tourists, foreign investors, businesses, and others. And this is important for our region's economic development. In the BDF recent State of the Region report from 2014, presented at the recent BDF summit in Turku in June, it is clear that the BSR countries, to be highly competitive region on a global level, still continues to do so. The region is doing well in terms of growth, trade, and foreign direct investments. So we are still top of Europe, as we usually say, but as a small and open economy, we need to be on our toes if we want the BSR to remain at the top of international competitiveness. In fact, with the growing international competition and new powerful emerging regions emerging, the key economic figures for the region are not that encouraging. Growth is positive, but it's slow. Foreign trade is increasing, but growing slowly, and we are losing market shares globally. So foreign direct investments are high and an important source of economic activity for the region, but this is also under pressure. And one of my key points is that we simply need to do better. In my opinion, countries, cities, and regions should come together and work even harder to create jobs and growth for peoples and companies in Europe through regional integration, cooperation, and cross-border action. By joining forces, we can increase our region's competitiveness and stay on top of Europe. The current conflict with Russia over Ukraine is giving rise to new uncertainties politically and economically in Europe. In times of crisis, efforts to strengthen regional cooperation around the Baltic Sea will be even more important. For many years, Baltic Development Forum has worked to develop growth and competitiveness in the BSR through partnership between businesses, governments, and academia, and trying to play the role as an honest broker, being agenda setter and think tank for regional cooperation in the BSR. Among the characteristics of the regional cooperation is our ambition and our ability to jointly promote our strengths. This also includes soft values like culture and identity, common values that are assets when attracting tourists and investors to the region. One example out of many is the One BSR project, where many stakeholders around the Baltic Sea has worked together in the search of common ideas and images of the common regional identity. The One BSR project has aimed to create dialogue and finding common features between different countries, nations, and identities by branding and marketing the region in areas such as tourism, investments, and talents. As part of the project, BDF is also coordinating the cooperation among the investment promotion agencies around the Baltic Sea with the aim to increase the potential of the BSR as an attractive investment location for foreign investors. For foreign investors, it is attractive to know that an investment in one country of this region is also the gateway to a much larger BSR market with similar cultural identity and values. Culture is not only increasingly integrated in our political and commercial branding strategies for the Baltic Sea region, it is also a way to engage the citizens in the development of the region. BDF is hosting the website called Newswave, a common news platform for the Baltic Sea region with daily news, opinions, blogs, and debates from all over the region. Newswave is telling the daily life stories from the region, from citizens, academia, corporations, and governments, facilitating cooperation in the entire region and supporting the outreach of the EU strategy for BSR. Telling the stories that we share between us is a better way to mobilize a public interest for the region, as an EU strategy is not easy to translate to something relevant for citizens, companies, and civil society. Newswave is to say filling the information gap, connecting people as neighbors and engaging them in the region's economic, social, and political development. So we feel that it's very, very important that, especially in the times of tension, that we focus on strengthening our region, that we focus on strengthening our economic ties, because our countries will need some economic growth, especially if the instability continues. And we believe very much that trying to see if we can find areas of mutual benefit and interest is one way of doing that. Just to finish off, when I was watching the video, I admit I like to also jump in and swim when it's pretty cold in the water. I'm from the very north of Denmark, where the water is always cold, even in the summertime. So I recognize that. But the funny thing was that one of the things that I at least have discovered talking to many different stakeholders also bind us together is our focus on IT and ICT strategies. That's one of the other areas where Latvia now is promoting that we are really in the forefront. But if you ask any country in the region, well, any politician will say, this is what we're really trying to aim at being the best of. So I think that's another area where doing things together will help us. And because we are small countries, even though we're spending a lot of money on education, I think another area which is very, very relevant for us and for the hopes and future of new generation is focusing on talents. Because that's another area where I think that we together can make a very, very, very strong, strong identity. My last point will be, because I agreed very much with what you said, Karina, I think that in times like these, we really need to stand strong together. Cultural diplomacy is not the answer to anything. Sometimes to everything. You need sometimes to use strong political or military power even to make your point. But I think we should use the soft powers, especially with a conflict that, to my belief, will not only be over in 1 or 2 years. I think that the way that Russia is acting right now is something that we will see over a decade. And it will be a way of battle between our different values. So we can use the soft relations and the soft powers like culture and identity in order to make sure that the civil society, especially in Russia, is not completely shut down, but there will be a strengthening there. So just to say that I think I'm very, very happy that we're having this conference, and I enjoyed very much the two former speakers before me. I agree very much, and I hope that we will have a very good discussion now. Thank you very much for inviting me.